Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. It's called FHS, the acronym for Food Hypersensitivity, and it's beginning to worry parents and professionals alike. Researchers are scurrying to determine just how big this issue is, and some have even determined that it may be responsible for some psychiatric disorders. Now, some folks might say, come on now. Where was this problem when our parents and grandparents were younger 30 to 50 years ago? They seemed to eat and live just fine. Well, I'm no food expert, but I do know that our grandparents did not have the technology, the knowledge, and the research capabilities back then like we do today. Also, here's the other thing. The genetic tinkering of the food processing industry is frightening. It's creeping me out. With me on the show today is Dr. Megan Hudson of the Brain Balance Center of West Springfield, Massachusetts, and I've asked her to help me answer the question, could our kids be hypersensitive to some foods? Welcome back, Dr. Hudson.
Thank you.
So to clear this up for a lot of parents, is hypersensitivity and food allergies the same thing?
No, they're actually two different things. Food allergies are a histamine response to foods, or if we're not talking about foods, allergies in general are a type of response in your immune system where your body produces histamine, which causes the itching and the rashes and the swelling. Doctors usually test for that by scratching the skin and doing that kind of a test. Food sensitivities
I'm going to stop you there, Dr. Hudson.
Okay.
They don't scratch the surface. They poke you.
They poke you.
I just went through a big test and they poked about 20 holes in my hand, so I'm
Right.
sorry. Go ahead.
They call it the scratch test.
Okay.
Though, right? Food hypersensitivities are different because your immune system responds differently. It doesn't send out histamine, it sends out inflammation, and it causes inflammation in the gut and it causes inflammation in the brain. So there are two different activities that are happening, even though they're both mediated by the immune system. So this difference is very important because a lot of times kids will get tested for food allergies and maybe they will have one or two or they won't have any, and yet there's still problems going on with their diet. That axiom, you are what you eat, it's really more accurate that you are what you absorb. So you could have the best diet in the world, and if you're not absorbing the nutrients, because perhaps you're eating something that you have a sensitivity to, then you're going to end up with inflammation in your brain and your gut, and so then you're not going to be absorbing those nutrients, even though they're supposedly good for you.
We're always worried about wrapping our kids in bubble wrap. Now we have to wrap their stomachs in bubble wrap, or
Well, there's just, there's always more to learn about how the
Yeah.
body works, and as you were mentioning, all the changes that have happened since our grandparents were alive. The foods have changed, the environment's changed a lot, there's so many more chemicals than there used to be. And one of the things that's happening is there's so many more and more disorders that are being diagnosed. The CDC came out with a statistic this summer that said 1 in 7 American children are being diagnosed with a developmental disability. That's 15% of our kids right now, and it did not used to be that way. So why is that? There's a field called epigenetics, which is actually the environmental influence upon genetic expression, which is actually what is looking at all of these different factors. So just the things that you had mentioned and then a whole lot more are contributing to these massive problems that are showing up now.
All right, so now that we've stressed all the parents out here watching this, what suggestions do you have for them?
I would say a lot is, you could start keeping a food diary and write down what the child eats and notice over a 3-day period, especially over a week, 7-day period, what does the child eat a lot of? Now, chances are the younger the child, the more the parents are feeding them. As kids get older, it's harder to tell necessarily what they're eating when they're not in the house. But you want to start tracking behavior, and behavior, pallor, eyes, dark circles under the eye, maybe a lot of mucus. That could be a sign of a dairy insensitivity. There's a lot of observation that you can do over time, but the most definitive way is to get a blood test and find out for sure. There are different types of diets out there. There's the Feingold diet, there's a GAPS diet, there's where people taking gluten out of the diet and seeing how well their children do. A lot of children do really well not having gluten. Taking dairy out, maybe they do well, but you're kind of guessing. So why not go get the blood tested and see for sure what's actually going on in the blood in relation to the food.
So can we equate any of this to behavior?
Absolutely.
Really?
Have you ever had a fever?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how you feel kind of out of it and like you're kind of in an altered state with the fever?
Yes.
Well, that's an example of sort of brain inflammation in a way. So you think about kids who are really having a hard time learning or focusing or paying attention or concentrating. If there's inflammation in their brain from foods that they're eating that they're hypersensitive to, that has a huge effect on cognition, has a huge effect on behavior, emotional regulation. There's a whole lot.
You know, when my vehicle has a problem, I can usually bring it to my mechanic and they plug this thing in and something shows up on the screen to tell me what's wrong.
Right.
It's almost like we need that with kids today.
Yeah.
Because a parent's job is so tough. We need to bring kids to centers and have them plug them in and say, oh, there it is, here's the problem.
Right.
And if only we could do that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what we do with Brain Balance. We do a lot of testing, non-invasive. It's fun, a lot of exercises to see how well our children's brain and nervous system's functioning, and then we put them in a program to help get them better. And one of the big things we do is we have them do a blood test. We put them on a diet. They take away the foods out of the diet for 90 days that are a problem. And that then allows their brain to heal from the inflammation and their gut to heal. And now then they start to introduce the foods back again, along with the work that we've been doing to balance their brain function. A lot of times they're able to eat those foods again. But they get a break from this sort of assault on their immune system.
So my question is, how does this affect kids with disorders then?
The nutritional piece?
Yeah.
Well, it can really magnify. If you already have one side of your brain is weaker than the other, and there's also a nutritional issue if you're eating a lot of foods. A lot of kids get really hooked on foods that they have a hypersensitivity to. You know, if you're just eating mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, and that's all you eat, partly because you don't like new things, or maybe you don't have a very good sense of smell. Maybe they're very reliant on texture, but they can get really hooked on foods that they're hypersensitive to. So then they're mono-eating. They're eating the same things over and over, and now their gut is inflamed, their brain is inflamed. And with the brain imbalance that can be there with the weak hemisphere, that can really show up with a lot of problems.
You know, that's really frustrating because a lot of parents come to me and say, you know what, I can't get Susie to eat, so I just let her eat the same thing all the time. And that's frightening because if that's going on, and that's leading to the problem.
I've been amazed at the kids who've come through our program, a lot of the younger ones especially, really understanding from their own experience how, speaking about milk is a common thing that kids have a problem with. And, you know, a 9-year-old student saying, I can't eat dairy. My brain is confused when I'm on dairy. I can't have that. I'm going to 3rd grade next year. That was a quote from him. He got off the school bus one day because they had tried having him eat dairy, and you know, he really got it. So he stays away from it. I've got 12-year-olds reading labels saying, Mom, I can't eat this. It's got casein in it. I can't have it. So kids really, I think when they just like all of us, when we realize, oh, this makes me feel terrible, I'm more motivated not to do it.
Well, that's so powerful when a child is actually able to be educated on what they can eat and can affect them. Because you know what parents do? They go, you know what, I don't want to deal with the power struggles.
Absolutely.
If she won't eat anything but the chicken fingers, then I'm just going to deal with it. But it's frightening about what's going on.
Well, that's why our program, nutrition is 1/3 of what we do. You know, we also do the sensory motor and the cognitive work because we're really looking to change brain function completely all the way through, not just from the nutrition.
And is that a book that?
This is Dr. Robert Melillo's second book. I had mentioned the first one in the first segment, which was called Disconnected Kids. This is called Reconnected Kids. And I believe he's writing a 3rd book now about the nutritional components that we're discussing. So this is a wonderful resource.
The last question, we only got a few seconds. Is hypersensitivity permanent?
Absolutely not. It can change, but you have to do something about it. You have to change the brain function. The brain is what runs the immune system. The immune system changes all the time. People can have an allergy and then the allergy goes away. People are sensitive to something and then they're not. You can change it. It's not permanent.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming out and helping us with this topic because it's a huge challenge, Now we're going to jump from a topic regarding young children to a problem concerning older kids. Coming up in the next segment, I'll be interviewing a therapist who will provide us with some guidance on the problem of teens and marijuana. Stay with us. We'll be right back.